Their lies, not there as in Their, their lies behind the modern Bible version controversy, a dark and ancient conspiracy that is destroying our civilization and Christianity at this very moment. My name is Joseph Armstrong. Welcome to the Bible version conspiracy. Please like, subscribe, and share if you don't really care about having friends. It'll give a rash on the backside of the Illuminati mole that has infiltrated your church, and it will make it so I don't have to subscribe to this YouTube channel myself. You can get sucked into the conspiracy rabbit hole with us every Friday night. Check out the links in the description for information which the Illuminati has erased from my memory, and help us go full-time spending long nights with the skeletons in James White's closet at our Buy Me a Coffee page. Tonight's topic is going to be a little more oriented toward textual criticism and stuff like this, and one relatively famous textual critic. He is a professed Christian, and he is Daniel Wallace. Daniel Wallace has quite a bit to say on the manuscript tradition. A lot of expertise behind these kind of things. He's very closely aligned with what James White would have to say, even though they don't agree on everything. So anyways, we're going to be reading about his conspiracy theory. And this, I think, is going to be interesting because mostly when someone who criticizes, the idea of, King James onlyism and stuff like this. Thank you for the like, by the way. Interesting. Daniel Wallace is instrumental in leading me away from the critical text. That's what Chase Dowell has to say. In case I misread anything, there's the text on the bottom of your screen. That would be interesting to hear your elaboration on that, Chase. In leading me away from the critical text. I believe that's what CT is going to stand for in this context. So then, that'd be interesting. Oh, Oh. And, what is his name? Afshin. And I don't remember his last name. All right, so just a few things before we get right into this this discussion, and you guys are welcome to chime in the comments anytime that you like. See the introduction to myths and mistakes in New Testament textual criticism. Okay, cool. I've had that book on my to buy eventually list for a long time, and I will have to write that down now. Okay, so, which, in case you are wondering, that is Spanish for cheese. Okay, so I believe it is. I'm not a Spanish expert by any means. So, myths and mistakes. All right, we'll take care of that later. All right, let's get to some prayer requests. If you guys have any prayer requests that you guys would like to send in, we will be glad to pray for those. That's how we open. We have opened every live stream for a while. And all right, so prayer list. Please keep my Aunt Jane in prayer, as my uncle has recently passed away. the day that I went on with John Kerwin on his let me put this down. Hey, Spray Arm. The day that I went on John Kerwin's show, Wake Up or Else, for a discussion on the Mandela effect was the day that my uncle's funeral had happened. And so, yeah, we won't get into a lot of that right now. We've talked about it before. My aunt is living with my mother and father at this point, and hopefully things work out for her. Sorry for saying. I'm going to try to make a point of not saying Let's see, what else could I say instead? Let's see. Sorry, I had to. Jemima also has recently been widowed. She, unlike my aunt, has 6 children under 12, so keep her in prayer. She was widowed earlier this year, I believe 3 months after they had a stillbirth, so she has had a terrible 2023, to say the least. Please pray for my oldest son, Joseph Jr.'s gut. We continue to work on that and give him his supplements, which he needs. I stopped myself before that came all the way out. We have car trouble going on, so that's another thing. I'm pretty sure that our oil leak has been found. The plug on the bottom of the oil tank, reservoir, whatever, I think is the problem. So that has hopefully been fixed at this point. This is really actually kind of sad. I don't think I've had one viewer in like forever. Of course, this is kind of like a podcast, I guess, so people can navigate away if they feel it necessary or want to do that. But yeah, if you guys feel like it, like I said, if you aren't interested in having any friends, you may feel more than welcome to share this video. If you like it, if you hate it, if you think it's stupid, you know, laugh at the guy running his mouth late at night on YouTube with all of your friends. That's fine. Just, I don't care when, where, how, or with whom you share this. Just share it. It helps our YouTube channel tremendously, and it's the only way that anybody besides you will watch this for the rest of eternity. So if you want anybody else to join you in the torturous pit that you've fallen into called the Bible Version Conspiracy YouTube channel, please share it. All right. So, car trouble, the oil, I think, is dealt with. I think we have an air conditioner, which hasn't worked for a while, so that's probably going to have to get fixed. I'm not sure what expensive part it's going to be, but yeah, it's going to be fun. Not fun to pay for. The both door cables need to be replaced. I have, I believe, parts that will work for it right now. We will see. I would really like to have a mechanic deal with it and then pay them to do it. Because I don't know about DIYing this. It's anyways. We will see about that. In case, just putting it out there. If you guys want to help us with that, you guys can mark that if you make a donation to buy me a coffee. Not saying you have to, but if you do make a donation, please make a note on it that it's for the car repairs. Anyways. My wife, Destiny, with her fibromyalgia, her Lyme's has gone pretty well. She has recovered from many things postpartum. This was a very, very smooth birth, very smooth postpartum period. Besides when she started, going back into things and kind of overdid it a little bit. She had some different issues, but she's all good from those now. We should be in the clear. Tomorrow we plan on going shopping. We're going to try to, do it light, not as much walking as usual for her. We'll see what we can do with that. David Jones has a doctoral no, wait a second. Wait. Back up one. Our first co-conspirator ever, Chase Dowell. Salvation for his parents and siblings. Please keep that in prayer. David Jones, his doctoral dissertation on how famines have affected Irish literature. He is also one of our co-conspirators, so please keep him in prayer. And like I've said before, if you guys have any prayer requests that you want to send in, please check out the link right below my name right here. You can send us an email with any prayer requests that you might have. You can add them to the comment section. If I miss it, if I miss your prayer comment or your prayer email, please, try again. I don't see everything. It's not a guarantee. It's hard to keep on top of everything. I've described it before as a tent with 20 corners, and I am in the middle of the gale force wind right now, trying to nail down each corner as it's flying in the wind, and I'm trying to grab each of them, and it's chaotic, but we got to get this tent nailed down. The Flory family, they would have already had a C-section earlier today for their daughter. So we're going to keep that in prayer. It's a sorry and unique state when C-sections are necessary, in my opinion. A lot of the times it's because of malpractice that they have to be done, but I'm not going to jump into that topic right now. We're just going to save it for now. I was born by C-section. Not like it's, not like it's a bad thing to be born that way, but let's just say that it's less than ideal. And usually because of too much intervention. Zip. I would also like to introduce a helpful tip for the day. I think that would be cool to have on the live stream. Just be like, oh, here's something. Let's do it right now. 20 seconds. Helpful tip. This is the time of year for fruit flies to be everywhere. So a lot of people are frustrated that they can't get rid of the things. They're just constantly flying around. One of the big things you can actually do to cut down on fruit flies is get them where they lay most of their eggs. Compost, yes. Fruit, yes. Cover them up with towels, things like that. Set out little bowls with a little drop of Dawn dish soap and apple cider vinegar in it. That'll attract them too as a trap. And one of the biggest things that you're going to need to do to actually keep them from spawning is pour boiling water down your drains. So both sides of the kitchen sink, if you have two sides, and your bathroom sink, things like this. Be careful, of course, about hot water and the type of material that yours is made out of. We poured some down I'm not sure if it's porcelain. It's probably some type of ceramic, but it did fine. So just a helpful tip. Pour boiling water down the drains. It might not even hurt to do it in your shower. So just something to keep in mind, something that might help you out this fall. All right. Back to the stuff. Let's pray. Dear God, please help my Aunt Jane. Please help me as I try to stop saying Please help my aunt as she is dealing with life after her husband. It is never a pleasant experience, Lord, but we know that you have her included in your plan and that you still have a place for her to fill. Is such a hard word to get away from. I need deliverance from this word. Please help Jemima as she has been recently widowed and had a stillbirth and has 6 children. Under 12. Please keep her strong and encouraged and use her to your glory and reunite her with her husband in the future in a glorious reunion. Please help my son Joseph Jr. with his gut, our car with its troubles, my wife with her fibro and her recovery from this in this postpartum period. Bless Chase Dowell, our first co-conspirator, and his parents. Please show them your grace, your mercy, your power, your wisdom, your knowledge. Please get through to them using something in their lives, there's so many things that can be used. There's so many ways that you can get through to people. Please deliver them from the lies and deceptions of the devil and of this world, and lead them into the glorious salvation of Christ. Help David Jones with his doctoral dissertation as he's researching and studying. Give him knowledge and insight and wisdom and the words to say. Help the Flory family with their C-section that has come up recently, even though that we know that this has already been taken care of. Lord, please hear this from the foundation of the earth and work things to your glory, to their safety, to the child's safe delivery, and for the betterment of this little baby girl's life. And please give me the words to say for this live stream. Please help me as I'm trying to deliver these things, as we're trying to have a pushback against the dark forces in this world that are going after your Bible, your words. Help us to be effective, and please use my weakness in your strength. Please make my feeble efforts, Lord, please make your strength perfect in weakness. In Jesus' name, amen. Alrighty, 3 people stuck around. I like it. I like when I see the same number when I close my eyes as when I open. I appreciate it that you guys stick around through that part, which can sometimes seem boring, but I have found out recently prayer is a pretty important thing. It is a pretty important thing. And I'm not going to say why right now. If you guys want to know why, well, you guys probably actually don't want to know why. Make sure that you're praying a blessing over your food. Make sure you are faithful, and I would do it with everything I stick in my mouth. Everything. Make sure that you have Christ bless that food, cleanse it, and, pray for your meals. Christ did it in the Bible. You should do it too. Alrighty, so we did that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Let's get into a few announcements. We're not doing too bad. It's only been 20 minutes. Not bad. We have a few different things coming up. I have 2 live streams set in stone, and another one that, actually 3, I guess, and one that I'm working on. Unicorns in the Bible is something that I would like to deal with, and then after that, I don't have any plans, guys. We're at the edge of oblivion. And I am hoping to come up with some good ideas for future live streams. You guys can have input in that. Comment on the video. I don't think I've said that word for at least 5 minutes, so I'm actually doing pretty good. You guys can input at the email address right there. Send in your input via comment, live chat right over here on the side on YouTube right now. There are ways that you guys can influence what we do here. And I appreciate you guys showing up. I appreciate it very much. This is a show where we talk about conspiracies. We talk about what we believe, the conspiracy that we believe underlies the modern Bible version controversy. We talk about the King James Bible, glorify it, defend it, magnify it, help add clarification, help to provide resources regarding its defense. And we talk about related conspiracy theories like aliens in the Bible and Bigfoot, stuff like this. It always ends up coming in somehow, but our main niche is the conspiracy behind the modern Bible version controversy. And I word that specifically because I believe that there are places that us King James Bible believers have been influenced, strings that are attached to us that they, and nobody knows who they are pulling strings that are attached to parts of our anatomy, and they are manipulating us like marionettes, basically. Those are the strings that I am excited and look forward to finding, exposing, and snipping. So if you guys are interested in this live stream, this YouTube channel, helping us grow, we have a $500 promise. Once we reach, right now I believe we're at 72, I think, dollars per month. Once we get to 500 per month, if you guys are interested, you guys can become a co-conspirator for a custom amount. $7 is usually what we do, but you guys can put in a custom amount of what you want to do per month. Become a co-conspirator. And once we get to $500, we will do a live stream every night. Not a 2-hour live stream necessarily. And also not necessarily at night. I might do them in the mornings too. But it's going to be members exclusive, the everyday thing. Today, like Friday, when I already have a live stream, we'll probably just do the regular live stream, but we'll see. We may do a devotions thing with Joseph series and, relate it to the Bible version controversy. I'll have to see how that ends up panning out. But like I said, we reach $500, we go nightly, daily, whatever, however you want to put it. So it's a lot of commitment for me. I mentioned that to my wife the first time, and she's like, "Oh, help us," because $500 is a lot. $7 a month. I subscribe to a podcast for $7 a month, and I get to listen to members-only content, which I've actually never tapped into outside of overtime segments. $7 doesn't hurt somebody. It doesn't really affect your schedule. It doesn't make it so you have to jump in front of the world every single day. But it does empower us to be able to commit more time, more effort to this YouTube channel and pushing back against the forces that are manipulating us as Christians through the text of our Bible that we use. And to be clear, I do believe that the King James Bible is inerrant, infallible, given by inspiration of God in English. I've defended that on other videos, and if you guys want clarification about the given by inspiration part of it, we can talk about that too. I don't believe that's heretical. I wouldn't subscribe to something called double inspiration. If you guys want further clarification on that, we can do it later on. But anyways, that's that. So that's the $500 promise. Link is in the description to our Buy Me a Coffee page where you can jump in to our membership. I don't think I did. I will be providing a link below in the description. In our secret underground military description below this video. We will put a link down there for Gail Riplinger's Thank Box. Did you guys know that October 10th, whatever day it is, I believe it's October 10th, is Gail Riplinger's birthday. And we are preparing a thank box for her like we do on different occasions. We did for Christmas, Easter, Easter, Resurrection, Valentine's, different days like this, her birthday, different times. And thank box allows us to send her a digital card that appears in her email and allows us to be able to give her a donation of funds, a video if you prefer, a photograph, a personalized message, everything that goes right to her. And when she can respond to that, and everybody that has left something in this thank box card gets feedback from her. It is really a neat system. So if you're a part of the Friends of Gail Riplinger group, that is going to be pinned up at the top for her thank box. You guys can go into that, add a donation if you feel led to do that. But definitely go in, add a personalized message, tell her thank you for her work, let her know what you know, how much you care about her, you know, whatever you like. Add a video to it expressing how you feel, how you've enjoyed New Age Bible versions and all of thy word, hazardous materials, these different enormous books that she put years of her life into, which we enjoy and find extremely fascinating. Go in and let her know what you think. You can do a video, you can do a GIF, you can do a photograph, whatever you like. Sky's the limit. We will be putting a link to that in the description. I will be adding it after the stream, and we will try to make sure that makes it into upcoming streams. On the 29th, this is an interesting one. We are going to have our first guest on the show. His name is Afshin. I hope I'm getting that right. He is a pastor in Spokane, Washington. He had a discussion, which is what John Kerwin calls it, when he ropes somebody in so he can try to corner them and interrogate them on his interesting hypothetical situations on human memory to try to convince the world about the Mandela effect. So, yeah, he got trapped. And I'm looking forward to being trapped again. That'll be an interesting time on his channel again, John Kerwin's. So Afshin went on there, did a phenomenal job. I appreciated how he held himself together, despite the criticisms and the constant interruptions that John loves to make, and just the ill will that's just shown during the whole thing in a very you know, not obvious form. You guys know what I'm talking about when somebody's just like thinks you're an idiot, but is being really nice about it. You know, things like this. So we're going to have him on here, Pastor Afshin from Spokane, Washington. He's going to be presenting information that he has studied, that he's researched on the Mandela effect, how it hasn't affected the King James Bible, how research is done, how history actually is playing out, how the text of the King James Bible has existed throughout history. Just different things. We're gonna have a chat about that. That's going to be on September 9th on this channel at 10 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. So if you're interested in that, you guys can go to our YouTube channel. I believe the stream is up right now. It's just simply titled Mandela Effect, I believe. You can go there, hit the notify me button. It'll tell you like a half an hour before we go live, and like right as we go live, things like this. That should be good. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Chase. I'm glad to know that you guys can even hear me, because yeah, this is being powered by the phone, which is being powered by a cable. So yeah, tis fun. And I'm glad that this thing works. It works, right? Yes, it does. Green light's on. All right. So that'll be September 29th. Also, my in-laws are coming out in October, so there will be a pre-recorded live stream sometime in October. Alrighty. I think I'm going to start out with a few questions posed to myself as kind of a starter package. And then we will get into the article by Daniel Wallace. I'll take a quick thwig. I've posted actually some stuff by Daniel Wallace. There's a post that I made of his video talking about Westcott and Hort. And he talks about them to say the standard stuff that we can get from really any book on, you know, how we got our Bible and stuff. And there's so much to unpack with those two guys. So much really weird stuff to unpack with those guys. He didn't mention anything about the haunted cathedrals that they loved to stay in all night. He didn't say anything about what they believed about Atlantis. There's a lot of different things that weren't discussed, and mostly it was just, oh, they did this stuff with, you know, textual criticism. These were their basic rules. They were good Anglican, you know, bishops, priests, whatever. And that was about it. So that was the video was, I think it didn't deal with what it should have, but it also kind of just has to be the generic thing because it's, you know, it's a 15-minute video. You can't get into everything, but of course they don't talk about these angles. That's what this channel here is for. To bring these things up, to get them in the public eye so that the standard package statement on everything isn't the only thing that's available. If you guys want to hear more about those haunted cathedral things, I'll tell you later. Remind me before we're done. If not, I'll deal with it at some other point. And there's also a video by Phil Stringer about those things. Let me add that to the description and we'll get started here. Phil Stringer W/H's Occult Connections. And we'll be talking about the occult connections that Phil Stringer finds in Gail Riplinger. How Phil Stringer with the Dean Burgon Society was like, Gail Riplinger is probably a closet New Ager, witch, Satanist, occultist. And I'm just like, this will be interesting. He wrote a whole little book about it called Gail Riplinger's Occult Connections. If you guys want to pick up a copy, I'm pretty sure it's still available on Amazon. I'll add a link to the description for that too. So in case you guys want to have a copy for next week, maybe you guys can get it into your place, you know, if you have Prime or whatever, 2 days, what have you. So Gail Riplinger's Occult Occult does not have 3 C's in it. Alrighty then. So, is evidence the opposite of a conspiracy? This is something that needs to be understood. When we say, when I say conspiracy, I think people that are with whispers, con and spiracy, a situation, a group of people, an agenda where there are people that are speaking in whispers. That's the basic breakdown of the word conspiracy. A lot of the time today, conspiracy is used just for, oh, you have no evidence of this, or I choose not to accept the evidence that you have provided for this. Therefore, it is a conspiracy because it is a conspiracy theory. So when people say conspiracy, a lot of the time what they mean is conspiracy theory. When someone says a conspiracy exists, that definition doesn't apply. So when someone says that if you have evidence for something, it is not a conspiracy, that doesn't mesh. So if you have evidence for a conspiracy, it still is a conspiracy. It just becomes a more substantiated conspiracy theory, and eventually when the conspiracy is broken or proven or exposed, it ceases to be a conspiracy theory. It becomes a conspiracy or just a fact of history, and it's accepted into, the regular, historical timeline. So evidence is not the opposite of conspiracy. If there's evidence for the conspiracy, it doesn't contradict, I think I've proved my point. So if I just say it over and over again, it's just going to get worse. Or proven my point. I have stated my point. Is there no early manuscript or father considered Byzantine? That's probably true. Byzantine is going to be your text of the King James Bible, the Fuller, not Fuller as in the last name like David Otis Fuller, or Fuller Theological Seminary, the more full text where you have longer readings. Say 1 John 5:7, for example. There are three that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these three are one. And there are three that bear witness on earth, Spirit, the water, and the blood, and these three agree in one. Most texts, especially Byzantine manuscripts, don't have the Father, the Word, the Holy Ghost, and these three are one. Doesn't have that. What it does have is the Spirit and the water and the blood part of it. So the fuller text is going to be with more words, and the less full text, obviously, is the shorter one. Pretty simple. The reason why there is no early manuscript or father considered Byzantine is not because Byzantine readings are not documented in early manuscripts or in early church fathers. The reason why they're not considered Byzantine, and I think Dan Wallace gets into this in his article, he may not explore this part of it, but the reason they're not considered Byzantine is because often they will be classified as, I believe, Syrian, because of the Antioch in Syria, where this text style with longer readings that include verses that are not in modern versions but are in the King James Bible. This text originates and dwells more around Antioch in Syria. So this is reaching way back into my memory. I believe it's called the Syrian text. So if you're looking for something Byzantine, you're not going to find it in that earlier period, but you will find readings. You're not going to find like a text, because it's going to be classified as Syrian to make it so it's not Byzantine. So it's like it's a really weird game that they play with manuscript families and stuff. It seems like, to me and to a lot of other King James Bible believers, that this word game, this shell game with the P and everything, is played just to make it so that the traditional text, what some call the ecclesiastical text, the church-based text, is frowned upon, because it is understood by the classification system, which people uphold when they need to, and they just kind of ignore the rest of the time. At least it seems that way most of the time. It's made so that you can keep doing what you want to in the ecclesiastical text, the accepted, received text that has existed in manuscripts and translations throughout history leading up to the King James Bible and other like texts in other languages today. So it looks like it has less authority. And the critical text, which is controlled by the educated people, the wealthy people, has more officialness to it, more credence. Is there a New Age conspiracy against the Bible? I think that there is. Gail Riplinger thinks there is. That's why she wrote New Age Bible versions. I will tell you that right now, at this point in history, it would make no sense if there is no conspiracy against the Bible, no New Age, Gnostic, Illuminati, whatever conspiracy against the Bible. It would make no sense in this day and age. For the more primal, the purer text, the most ancient text is now surfacing in the last days when the church is in the worst apostasy that she ever has been, and the text, which has been known for several centuries now as the received text, is now being pushed aside in favor of a critical text, as David Daniels calls it, one world Bible for one world religion. Is there a New Age conspiracy against the Bible? If there is a conspiracy, and if it is New Age, and if it is anti-biblical, I'll tell you, like Tex Mars said way back when, if I were the devil, I'd be pretty interested in that text of that book those Christians are always using. I believe the King James Bible has hung out for about 2,000 years, at least the text of it, the translation of it, about 400 years in our language. So I believe in God's preservation throughout history, that God's word has existed somewhere where people have accepted it and received it, and they have hid it with themselves when they face persecution, like in the Dark Ages in the Catholic Church, places, things like this. And this New Age conspiracy against the Bible is taking copies of the Bible and changing them, like the there. Maybe I've gotten them all out and I won't say them anymore. The New World Translation, for example, of the Jehovah's Witnesses would be a good example that is accepted by most Christians as being a cult Bible. They won't even tell you what translators worked on it. I think my personal theory is that Charles Taze Russell had a seance or a familiar spirit working with him on it. And the reason why no translator list is ever provided is because if a translator list was given, it would be easy to prove false, because there were no translators involved. It was just somebody like Charles Taze sitting around going, ooh, you know. That's my personal theory at this point. But many people have asked and cornered the JWs and been like, tell us what translators were behind that book and we'll consider it. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I'll come back next week with a list of the translators. And they never come back because there is no list of the translators that worked on the New World Translation. The little gray book, you know. So that's accepted as a more New Age translation. Someday I would love to get into it more on this channel with a guest that is very well educated in these kind of things, about how the Jehovah's Witnesses have their origination in the Illuminati. But we'll probably save it for then. He has a lot of material. You guys have heard of him before. His name is Springmeyer. Oh, and also, New Age Conspiracy. This is one of the foundations of the channel. New Age Bible, or not New Age Bible versions. I didn't say all the ums earlier. They're still here. New Order of Barbarians with Lawrence Dunnigan, where Richard Day gets up and says, guys, we're planning a new world order. If you guys want to hear more details about this story, we can share them in a bit. Or there's the playlist, New Order of Barbarians playlist, which I'll put in the description and also the book. All right. So Richard Day gets up, gives the speech. We're starting a new world order. There's going to be a new world religion. Catholic Church has to be taken out first. The rest of Christianity will follow. The Bible needs to be changed. Not all of it. Just some keywords are going to be one thing in the first edition, and then the second edition they'll be a synonym. They'll still mean the same thing as the first word, and then the next time we come out with the Bible, the word won't even resemble. It will be a synonym for that second word, but it will be what we want instead of that original word that it had. So they're tinkering with English translations. Oh, the church won't stand for this, you may say, he said. But he said, you're wrong. The churches will help us, and those who notice are not going to be enough to matter. When I heard that, I was like, okay, time to start mattering, guys. So that's why we started the YouTube channel. This is something that I felt that I could do, that we could do. We're going to keep going with all sorts of things in the future, Lord willing. And it'll be fun. It'll be good. It'll be fascinating. It'll be interesting. This topic is so interesting that I've been immersed in this subject, not so much since I've started like my family and everything. Did I say again? I need to have my genes checked for the gene and the gene, which is probably very repetitive in my gene code. Just see if I can get them all taken out by CRISPR or something. Joking. So yeah, time to start mattering, guys. It's time to start mattering. It's time to get motivated. The house is burning down. It's time to get people out. Is this conspiracy concerned or involved in the production of modern translations? Absolutely. That's what that little story that I just related about the New Order of Barbarians is all about, really. So let's get into this article by Daniel Wallace, a very intelligent man that you should listen to. But listen to it with an open mind, an open Bible right next to it so you don't lose either of them. That's what I always used to say, and I still do. You need to keep your open mind. Keep your mind open. Keep it open, but keep it right next to an open Bible, and you won't lose either of them. You'll know right where they are at all times. So you don't lose your mind, and so you don't lose your Bible. So let's get out of here, and let's find... Daniel Wallace. One of the things that I hope to jump into with our co-conspirators is the demonology of King James, which I think would be fascinating to go through, especially in the light of the different things that are coming up, let's say. different little, as Kat Hansen would describe it, conscious cryptids, which people are interacting with. They have been throughout all of history, but things are kind of ramping up. So it'll be interesting to read the demonology of King James with these new glasses on. And also especially for Americans, because most of the people that watch this channel, I believe, are Americans. And we have rejected the notion that there is anything paranormal, supernatural out there, whatever. It's all myths, fairy tales. Forget about it. Forget about it. And most other cultures simply haven't. They've just held on to their beliefs and traditions throughout all of time. And they're much more in tune with these things. Like, you know, say fairies aren't real to a good old Englisher, and you might have a fight on your hands. So, let's see. I found his thing on inspiration preservation in the New Testament textual criticism by Daniel Wallace. Let me see. It should be in library. Wasn't that where I put it? If not, I have the website pulled up just in case I needed to fall back on that. So it's in the PDF in the BBC library folder. Bible version conspiracy, by the way. I thought it was kind of neat that on the keyboard, B, V, and C are all right next to each other in reverse order of how I have it. It's CVB, but it's BVC backwards, which is the initials of the channel, which is kind of cool. I thought that was neat. Makes things easier for me sometimes. So let's see. We'll search here for WALL. Nope. Let's try conspiracy. Nope. Let's see if I can be super techie, technical. Hang on a second. No, I don't want to end the stream. Switch devices. Do. Sign in. We're going to go to, if you guys want to look it up online, there should be a link in the description. If there isn't, it's on bible.org/article/conspiracy-behind-new-bible-translations. The conspiracy behind the new Bible translations is the title of the article. I'm going to hit read current page on your remarkable account. I need a one-time passcode. What a pain. Paste the one-time code. Did I get a one-time code? Because I highly doubt it. If not, we'll just read it off the website. I don't know why it needs me to keep logging in, really. We also have technology needs, by the way, guys. Oh, here we go. And I'm not even signed into the account that I would receive it on. Did I get an email about it? Nope. Whatever. We will just read it off of the website. I might be able to bring that up on the screen. Let me see if I can do that. That'd be fancy-dancy, wouldn't it? Let's try Enter Studio. Pro tip, decent lighting helps you look amazing. Except in the case of Huckleberry Finn. Remember the old cartoon of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn? My pappy always said in the dark's where I look my best. Sometimes I feel that way. All right, let's see. Let's do... all across this great big ocean, I prefer me. For those of you that... Oh, does this work? Share screen. Share screen, current tab. There, this tab. Share. Did it do it? Did it do it? Come on, come on, come on. You can do it, you can do it. It's trying, it's trying. This is using my laptop in tandem with the phone, which is really cool how it works. Okay, so it's up on the laptop. There we go. Can I scroll and everything? Let's go over here. Oh, it scrolls so slow. Youch. Come on. At least respond, okay? Yeah, okay. 8 gigs of RAM on a refurbished laptop that has well outlived its life expectancy. We have technology needs, guys. On our wish list on Buy Me a Coffee, there is a computer that I would love to get. It's the, I believe the Surface 9 Pro, I think is what it is. It's like $2,300. But it is typical for a laptop, a good laptop, to cost $2,000 or more. So if you guys want to contribute to the functionality of this channel and us being able to do what we need to do, you guys consider donating. You guys can consider donating to that fund. If you guys buy us books and you want to have that money go toward technology, just put in, here's some money for a new computer. Get what you need. All right, so let's see what we can do with this. Now that it's loaded, it's holding still. Scroll down. There it goes. And then back up to the top. Finally. Okay, anyways. The conspiracy behind the new Bible translations. And we're an hour in, and we're not doing too bad, I don't think. And I want to read the other ones in the series by Dan Wallace. For an introduction, I'm going to read this text right down here. I think you guys can see my cursor, right? Oh, my cursor is just moving terribly. Okay, so this part of the screen right here, can you see that? That part of the screen right there. All right, Daniel B. Wallace has taught Greek and New Testament courses on a graduate school level since 1979. That's 10 years after the, I believe it's 10 years after the New Order of Barbarians speech, which was given right here in good old New York State at, I believe, the Mount Zion Medical Center, I think is the name of it. He has a PhD from Dallas Theological Seminary and is currently a professor of New Testament studies at his alma mater, which is interesting because I believe that's Latin for Virgin Mother, but that's, a typical way of calling it. His Greek grammar beyond the basics and exegetical syntax of the New Testament. Oh, please don't tell me this is going to load another page. By clicking more, I think I'm loading another page. Poop. Let's try to... Can we duplicate this tab? While this one loads, which could take an eon. Oh, let's see. Zondervan, 1996, the year my brother was born, has become a standard textbook in colleges and seminaries. He is the senior New Testament editor of the NET Bible. Dr. Wallace is also the executive director of the Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts. That's cool. So that's a little brief intro to Dan Wallace. So let's go back. And this is not, in case this is what you were hoping for, this is not a Daniel Wallace is a Jesuit conspiracist, or not conspiracist, a conspirator, and we should ignore everything that he says as if it rolled off the lips of the devil himself. Not what I'm here for. I will acknowledge, however, that there are many people who are hiding out as Bible-believing Christians that are not by any means. Not saying Dan Wallace is one of them. This is why I have been saying a lot recently, trust no one except Batman. I believe that's what the Joker said one time. Trust no one except Batman. So in other words, trust no one. Trust no one completely. There is always room for something to happen. Kind of, I guess, a hellish way to look at things, as one person said. I had a coworker one time. This is kind of a bit of a Scrooge, and what he would say is, "If you don't trust nobody, you don't lose nothing." And he was very, very uptight about the quantity of bags of rock salt and things like, or softener salt and things like this. One customer heard him say that one time, and he's like, "Well, that's kind of a hellish view of life and people, but okay." So anyways, the conspiracy, now he is identifying a conspiracy behind the new Bible translations. And of course, this is, there's shock value. Oh, wow, there is a conspiracy and stuff. And he does believe there is a conspiracy. He really does. But of course, it's also a title. So take it as you will. Let's read the article and see what he has to say. This is the first in a series of occasional short essays. Oh, man. Come on. Something went wrong. Try again. Hang on a second. Try again. I don't know if my computer lost the connection or what happened. I hope it doesn't have this problem when Afshin shows up. Yeah. Entering studio. Pro tip. Remember to greet your viewers that will watch the replay. Oh, hello to all the people that are watching the replay. I appreciate you guys tuning in after the fact. And leave any comments or questions or anything that you have down below. I will see the comments. I will not guarantee I will see them quickly or that I'll respond quickly, but I will try to respond as I receive them. Leave studio. You sure you want to leave the studio? No, I want to stay. I never said I wanted to leave the studio. Okay, let's see. We're on that. So once this loads, we should be able to... Wow. No, I don't want to wait for the page to respond. It needs to respond now. Hang tight, guys. Please stay tuned. We are experiencing technical difficulties. I'm going to screen share. Share screen. Conspiracy behind the new Bible translations. Share. Please work. Please. I'll watch the phone to see when that comes up. I'm kind of being my own worst assistant ever at this point. By the way, that song, I Prefer Me, that is from a Patch the Pirate adventure called, I forget. It's the one with the mobster lobsters. It's not Ocean Commotion. Whale of a Tale. That's what it is. Is this thing going to share the screen or not? Whatever. Okay, so in case it ever shares the screen, maybe both of the tabs are spinning right now, so hopefully I even keep this page. And this thing is doing all that it can right at this point. I'm actually going to close out of this. Yes, I want to save changes. No, maybe that's going to be more hurt than help. Whatever. I'm just so glad that my phone has a far superior processor to my laptop. The conspiracy behind the new Bible translations. This is the first in a series of occasional short essays from the professor's soapbox. It is not intended to be a detailed explanation. Rather, it is meant to give you food for thought and to challenge some popular ideas. I like that because that's what we as King James Bible believers need. Thank you, Daniel. Marble. I appreciate that. Take a deep breath. Exhale. Get focused and quit mumbling. I do that too much. This is what happens as you learn publicly. This is, I'm not sure how many people that are watching this have their own YouTube channel where they learn publicly, but when you're learning publicly, you're putting yourself before, you don't even know how many people. You're waiting for suggestions, you're trying to work on your delivery and just everything. Learning publicly is not easy, but I am enjoying it. So, let's keep going. Introduction. The first major English translation of the Bible to appear since the King James 1611 was the Revised Version of 1881. Yes, because it came from the Church of England, from the Crown and everything. They were told specifically not to change the text of the Bible, but to update the words. But apparently they just went right ahead and did everything they wanted to textually as well. That's what I have heard, it's what I have read, is that they ignored what they were supposed to do and did something completely different, which is why they said shh to all the people that worked on the text of the Revised Version with them. Don't say anything that we're using a new Greek text, or else they're not going to let us do this. So, that's what I've heard. If there's correction that can come from someone like Dan Wallace, from anybody listening to this, I am open to it. We need to hear it. Challenge some popular ideas. We need challenging guys. It's what we need as Bible believers. That's what this whole channel is about. It's challenging. Challenging the status quo, challenging ourselves, challenging myself to be able to perform for 2 hours every Friday night at this point, and then in the future challenging myself further once I have the tent corners nailed down. Since then, numerous English translations have sprung up, almost all of which have used a different textual basis from the one found in the King James Version. This difference is especially seen in the New Testament. Yes, Absolutely, especially the New Testament. Simultaneously published with the RV was the Greek text of Westcott and Hort to Cambridge scholars. Those are the three words that are used to describe two very complicated individuals. This Greek text has been in the works for 28 years, coming to light on May 12th, 1881. It was accompanied by an introductory volume which gave the rationale for the choices made. So this is the basic stuff about Westcott and Hort. They published a text, they published a book explaining why they did what they did. Westcott and Hort were able to convince the vast majority of New Testament scholars of the truth of their textual choices. The majority they were able to convince, they had a lot of fighting to do. And it wasn't just John William Bergen that stood up against them. But in my mind, this is kind of a real, not a misrepresentation, but it doesn't give a lot of detail about this convincing that happened. Because this text is not Westcott and Hort. It existed before them, very similar to it, to my understanding, in the text of Greisbach, who I believe was from Germany. It wasn't an original creation with them. So since it has that kind of lineage, it's not this whole two great textual minds stood up, challenged the status quo. Everybody was like, "Oh wow, I can't believe that we didn't see this before." All this stuff, which is why if that challenge happened then and now, hear this textual critical people. If the status quo was challenged then, the status quo that is not challenged now, the one where people are like, you accept this, I don't care what your degree is, what your grade is in this class, you accept these theories on textual criticism, or you don't pass. You say that the King James Bible is just as much the Word of God as the American Standard Version, like I believe Bob Jones used to do. I think it's Bob Jones. Lots of different colleges did this. You give up this King James only stuff, or you will not get your degree. You will fail this test, and we will not allow you back to the college. You can't teach us. Who do you think you are? You know, this kind of stuff. The status quo was challenged then. The status quo, which has stagnated and has resulted in not an environment of growth, but an environment of control. This status quo needs to be challenged now. Moving on. Eventually, let's see. Essentially, they argued that the Greek text behind the KJV New Testament was inferior and late, and they used only 4 verses to prove their conflation theory, which we can talk about at some other point. Of course, as is well known, the Greek text used in the 1611 KJV was was for the most part based on about half a dozen very late manuscripts, none earlier than the 12th century AD. So what he's talking about is Erasmus of Rotterdam. These manuscripts, were used by Erasmus in 1516 when he published his first Greek New Testament. We'll discuss this point more in the essay. I'm hoping that he gets into the other things that Erasmus used for his textual basis and how Erasmus's text was not. Erasmus is here. There's Erasmus's text. Just sprang into existence. Wow, look at that. This textual history extends very far back. For the received text, you want to call it the Byzantine text, Syrian text, whatever you want to call it, I like calling it the received text. Not even the Textus Receptus. Not even Erasmus's creation, or his delineation of what he thought all of the words should be in his several editions. Just the received text, which has been passed down since time immemorial, and not a reconstructed text of the originals, which were apparently obliterated, and then we didn't have a Bible until they decided to try to rebuild it. We don't need a revised text. We need a text that God has preserved, and that has also not been influenced by outside forces. So there's a lot of things that need to be cleared up. These manuscripts, which there were not just 12, didn't talk about the versions, didn't talk about the memorized scripture that he used as reference as well. I highly recommend, on the point of Erasmus of Rotterdam, that you guys check out the book by Gail Riplinger. She has, I believe, a chapter or two in there about Erasmus. In awe of thy word, by Gail Riplinger. Check that book out. It's got a lot of good information, which hopefully we'll get into at some point. See, we got a couple of comments real quick. Let's take a moment. Daniel Marvel got back. I just read Majesty, the king behind the King James Bible. I have that in my buy someday list as well, by David Teams. So I am interested in this subject. Awesome. I need to buy that book now too. And Majesty by Teams. Ooh, Teems. So I need to keep this on the top of things, because I know if I put it under here, well, maybe if I buy Myths and Mistakes and Majesty. By Teams. And the first one by Wallace. Okay, cool. So let's see. Oh, and Chase Dowell. After their rules for making textual choices were designed to get... Okay. All their rules for textual... sorry, the phone is a ways away. It is at arm's length from me literally right now. See? Arm's length. All their rules for making textual choices were designed to give weight to Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. Yes. A lot of weight. A lot of unnecessary weight that they did not deserve. And we've gotten into the stuff about Sinaiticus before. That's going to get revisited again. I would love to have David Daniels on here sometime, if I can insert our little channel into his busy schedule at some point. That would be awesome. But I got to get his other book first. I got to get his other book. If you guys want to help us buy books, buymeacoffee.com. That's where you can literally buy us a book. $5 a book. So if you guys want our money going specifically towards something, then label it. Technology, car, family health, food, feed yourself, you're too skinny. Books, whatever. Label it how you want it to be spent, or just be like, hey, do what you need with this. Whatever is great. Let's see. But these few manuscripts, which Westcott and Hort, two, really, two? Oh, oh, and Alexandrinus probably too. And B, C, and D, the Great Uncials. All right, but these few manuscripts came from a much larger pool. In fact, for the most part, they looked very much like the majority of Greek manuscripts of the medieval ages. medieval ages. You mean the ones that were used by the Eastern Orthodox Church for the most part? And you mean how they have a translation, not a translation, how they have a textual tradition which is separate from a more Catholic or Alexandrian tradition? And it's interesting too because the Catholic one is the more Latin, and then you have a tradition which is more Greek. So why would you opt for a forgotten tradition, Alexandrian, which can agree more with the Catholic text a lot of the time, and ignore the one that has just been speaking Greek for 1500 years? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So, but Westcott and Hort said that this majority text was late and inferior. They preferred the 5 great uncial manuscripts, the great uncials, the big books, known by their letters: Aleph for Sinaiticus, A for Alexandrinus, I believe, B for Vaticanus, C, I forget, and D, I want to say, is related to Theodore Beza, but I can't remember. All of which dated from the 4th or 5th century. Wow, you mean they dated from then? Wow, I can't believe they all dated from the 5th century, or 4th century even. Wow. How do we know? The problem is, here, let me take Chase down real quick. There we go. Okay. Chase him down. How do we know that they were all from the 4th or 5th? Is it just because, oh, in the 4th or 5th century, they wrote in block capital letters with no spaces? Is that how we know their date? We've gotten very heavily on Sinaiticus's case about being very likely to be an 18th century manuscript. 18th century, guys. That means that much weight. 0. But that's another topic for another time. All of which dated from the 4th or 5th century, as well as early versions and versional and patristic evidence. Did they consult the lectionaries? How much did they really do with the patristic evidence, too? What patristics did they use? 2 manuscripts in particular, B, which would be the Vaticanus, and Aleph, which would be Sinaiticus, were favorites of Westcott and Hort. Both came from the 4th century. Of course, since this is not meant to be a detailed description, he does not get into why they favored them. Boy, they really loved those manuscripts. Which is funny, too, because Sinaiticus had just been discovered by Constantine Tischendorf at this point. And Vaticanus, although it did exist, at least in the time of Napoleon, and also in the time of Erasmus, where he rejected its readings because he believed it had been corrupted by, I believe it was the Council of Florence, if I'm not mistaken. So he did not trust Vaticanus, even though he did consult it when, it was time to do it, like, I'll bet your 1 John 5:7 is not even in Vaticanus, kind of stuff like this. I would love to get inside of Erasmus's head and see what he was thinking with the whole 1 John 5:7 thing. But that's another subject that we've addressed before, and we probably will too in the future. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about. You guys can influence what we do here. The Byzantine text, let's see, both came from the 4th century. That means from the 300s AD. Problem is that the only reason that we even suspect that they came from the 4th century is because they look old. The writing style is the same writing style. So assuming that there has never been a forgery ever in history of a biblical manuscript, especially at the sorry caliber of Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, assuming that has never happened, then we can probably assume that the writing style is exemplary of the time, and that's the best evidence for its existence. Nothing about chain of custody, nothing about so many different things that we've talked about in the other streams that we did on Tischendorf and Simonides, so we will leave that alone for right now. How did Westcott and Hort dethrone the Textus Receptus and the Greek manuscripts that stood behind it? They accomplished their task. It was their task to dethrone the Textus Receptus. Who gave them this task? I know it's the way that he's writing it, and I acknowledge that, you know, it's an accomplished feat. It's not necessarily something that was given them to do, but they did it. And it's interesting to think that it could have been a task that was given them. Okay. How did they accomplish their task? They did it with 3 arguments. The Byzantine text, i.e. the group of manuscripts behind the Textus Receptus, was not quoted by any church father before 325 AD, AD 325, while the Alexandrian text was amply represented before that period. Okay, interesting. Amply represented. In other words, Alexandrinus, Sinaiticus, Vaticanus, we have to assume that this manuscript family, which is not a family at all, they're like the worst family in history. They're at each other's throats constantly. They can't get along at family dinners like Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter and things like this. They just are constantly in disagreement. They don't consist a coherent family. So if they're constantly quoted, I would be careful about which patristics you're quoting first. I would get a hold of a copy of Ken Johnson's book called The Ancient Word of God. Very good book. And early manuscripts. Early manuscripts, church fathers, and the authorized version. I don't see my copy right now. Whatever. So get a hold of those, check them out, see what you think. All right. 2. The Byzantine text was shown to, if I leave any loose ends, by the way, please help me follow up on those. 2. The Byzantine text was shown to depend on 2 earlier traditions, Alexandrian and Western. It was shown to. So, in other words, you have a made-up text type by who made up the text type. And you have a Western text, which would be more Latin, I guess, more Catholic, stuff like this. And then you have the Alexandrian, which isn't exactly a text. It's more like a really bad bunch of texts which disagree constantly and will give you whatever they want, whatever you want them to give you, whatever you think is most reasonable. And the Byzantine text is supposed to have put them both together and created a conflated text where you take 2 things, put them together. That's called conflation. So you inflate something by putting things together. Con with salsa con queso, salsa with cheese, con. Anyways, chili con carne, chili with meat. All right, so the Byzantine text was shown to depend on 2 earlier traditions, the Alexandrian and Western, in several places. 4, I believe, by Westcott and Hort. That was their big proof. 4 verses. The early, and even those 4 are just like, guys, I mean, really, this isn't... Ruckman was always very... No, he was always very critical of those 4 verses. So earlier editors of the Byzantine... Okay. All right. The early editors of the Byzantine text combined or conflated the wording of the Alexandrian and Western traditions on occasion. While nowhere could it be shown that the Alexandrian combined Western and Byzantine readings, or that the Western combined readings of Alexandrian and Byzantine. That's interesting. Thinking back, there's probably somebody watching this who is a little bit more familiar with, and the Peter Ruckman stuff is actually pretty good with a lot of different things. There's a tape series that he did. I could almost swear it was the Alexandrian Cult and Correspondence tapes, but I'm not positive. And I believe it was him that gave a list of where the Western conflates the Alexandrian and Byzantine in such and such passage, the Alexandrian conflates the Byzantine and Western in such and such passage, and just gave a whole list. If my memory is serving me correctly, which that is a vivid memory, then nowhere could it be shown that blah, blah, blah. It's just not that cut and dry. It's just not. Text families, textual families, like I said, are basically ignored except when they're useful. Thus, with these three arguments, Westcott and Hort demonstrated that the Byzantine text was late. The patristic argument. Secondary, so it was late. It wasn't quoted apparently by the early church fathers. Okay, not really. It just depends. It depends on a lot. Oh, there's so much to get into there. Secondary, the conflation argument. So the other text came before, so it makes it a secondary text, the conflation argument. And inferior, that is the internal evidence argument. That is the Byzantine text, upon closer examination, proved to be inferior in its wording, either in not conforming to the author's wording or moving in a predictable direction, such as by adding clarifying words. So, in other words, if you have a text that has clearer sentence structure, that doesn't look like it was a rough draft or something like this, then, watching from Zambia for the first time. Wow, thank you, Blessings Mawepi Dala. I'm sorry, I probably just absolutely assassinated your name. Mawepi Dala. That's my attempt. Thank you for watching. I appreciate that. Let us see. Let me just show that. Boom. Okay. So I'll get to the other comments in a second. But the Byzantine... Alrighty. Thus, with these three arguments, Westcott and Hort demonstrated that the Byzantine text was late, secondary, and inferior. Along with the particulars of their overall view, although some of the particulars of their overall view have been questioned today, yes, most New Testament scholars find this general scheme to be a compelling argument against Byzantine superiority, hence the overthrow of the Textus Receptus. So, well stated. I like how he words things. So I would take issue with the idea that most New Testament scholars just sit there and find things compelling. Wow, I can't believe that I find the idea that I've been taught my entire seminary higher education experience one-sidedly, kind of like they teach evolution to people, but that's a whole nother, that involves non-Christians. I can't believe that what I've been taught my entire life makes so much sense to me. That actually shouldn't be surprising. And it also shouldn't be surprising that with all the people that are like, okay, you subscribe to this, you please, if you are listening to this and you are familiar with the pressure that an educator can put on you to accept their viewpoint, boy, like, expelled, no intelligence allowed. Sorry, guys. Educated bias is not exclusive to unbelievers. It is not exclusive to the evolution debate. It is in all of higher education, and it is a sickening, poisonous cancer that needs to be removed. Openness, growth, questions need to be focused on in education. Self-education needs to be focused on in education. You need to leave that class capable of educating yourself, not showing up, filling out answers on a test, assuming that you're educated, going out into the workforce, playing golf, and then just doing whatever you were told, you know, with the when you're going through the Disney ride and the dancing bear shows up, and like Bill Schneblin described it at one point. It's not how it should work. But this statement, although some of the particulars of their overall view, all of their overall view have been questioned today, most New Testament scholars find this general scheme to be a compelling argument against Byzantine superiority. Yes, most. And also not surprised, because our education system in America, in Europe, all across the world is broken. And it's nice that people are turning to self-education, because, like, I forget who it was that said this, education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. Conspiracy or evidence? This is where that question about is evidence contradictory to conspiracy. So saying it's conspiracy versus evidence is kind of like where you have creationism versus science as the headline in your newspaper. It's not creationism versus science. It's science and two different people that are analyzing the science and talking about text of scripture, and they're going head to head with two different viewpoints: creationism, evolutionism, Darwinism, biblical creationism, stuff like this. It is not science, because science in that use is an edifice. It is a monolith, the monolith of evil from the Super Friends, if you guys have ever seen that cartoon. That's what it is at that point. Science is the status quo, the thing that really just needs to be challenged once every few hundred years, you know? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So absolute power and educational influence, it can corrupt you really fast. And like the guy whose quote I shared, I believe it was yesterday, on John Kerwin's stream, he said, the guy that I quoted, I forget his name, but it was a good quote. He said that an environment based on that does not allow disagreement is not focused on growth, it's focused on control. So, conspiracy or evidence? Not a fan of that title of this section. What then has motivated the vast majority of New Testament scholars to embrace the earliest manuscripts as better representing the original wording of the New Testament? Well, of course, because they are taught from their infancy that the old is better, just like the Bible talks about with the wine. The old is superior, and nobody straightway desireth new when they've got the old, right? Or they think they have the old. That's why when you had the Revised Version come out, there was so much backlash, because the King James Bible was received as the inspired word of God by millions of people for 300 years. About. So yeah, they didn't straightway desire new. Same thing here. What then has motivated the vast majority of New Testament scholars to embrace the earliest manuscripts as better representing the original wording of the New Testament? In a word, evidence. Evidence has shown. Evidence shows us that the earliest manuscripts are in fact closer to the original. I would love to see the evidence that Sinaiticus was written any time before the 15th century. How about the 13th century? There's some pretty good indications in its own text, if I'm not mistaken, of it not being written before the 1300s. That alone could be devastating to textual criticism. By the way, David Daniels, check out his books. Daniels' books on Aleph, which is Sinaiticus. If Sinaiticus, in my opinion, I may be wrong, if Sinaiticus is an 18th century document, the edifice of New Testament textual criticism, in a word, evidence, you know, if it is an 18th century document, the entire structure collapses, because it shows that every manuscript that they use to support their stuff should have been chemically tested a long time ago. I would love to see the chemical analysis. Homeschooling. Yes. I would love to see the chemical analysis of Sinaiticus. I would love to see that. In a word, evidence. This is what has convinced all of the New Testament scholars alive today, more than 100 years after it actually happened. Westcott's argument was solid. Interestingly, in Westcott's day, only one New Testament papyrus fragment was known. Now, almost 100 have been discovered. And of course, there ends up being less of them all the time because they realize, oh, these two pieces of fragmented papyrus fit together. So now there's, instead of 3 manuscripts, there's 1. Or manuscript fragments. Which, by the way, Ruckman in his tapes gave some very interesting statistics about the Byzantine readings, because in those papyrus fragments, you have to the ratio to how many Byzantine readings are confirmed in those early papyri, the ratio of that to how much New Testament is actually available in papyrus fragment. Like, say, John. Say John is the only thing that is available out of the New Testament in fragments. Say in this hypothetical situation. And there are 10 Byzantine readings in John. And in the papyrus fragments, 9 or 9.5 readings that are strictly Byzantine are confirmed in the Gospel of John. Extrapolating that for the rest of the New Testament, you know what that does? That has the potential, not the fact, not trying to prove our ideas with theories and things, you know, we wouldn't want to do that. But extrapolating that out, it allows for the possibility that if the entire New Testament was discovered in papyrus, it has a really good chance that all of the Byzantine readings would be confirmed. Many of them have been. Many of them have been put back into the text. Which Byzantine are going to be your King James Bible readings, for those of you that are coming in late. I said it again. There's got to be at least 5 or 6 letters in just that one guttural utterance. In word evidence, Westcott's argument was solid. Westcott and Hort's argument was solid. Interestingly, in Westcott and Hort's day, only one New Testament papyrus fragment was known. Almost 100 have been discovered. These antedate the Great Uncials by as much as 200 years. Yeah. Are we positive? I love this. Yes, I'm a Christian. I would consider myself a Bible-believing Christian. I'm sorry that you've had to leave that comment twice. I appreciate you doing that, though. Let's see. Does anybody have any helpful tips on not saying the word these words like this? How to stop saying Now, almost 100 years, 100 have, okay, let's see. What is most significant about them is that not one is Byzantine. That's an interesting thing. How many Byzantine manuscripts? How many? Okay, let me reword that. How many Byzantine places are you finding papyrus fragments in to begin with? Aren't you predominantly finding papyrus fragments in Egypt, in the desert, where Gnosticism, where paganism and Christianity had the child known as Gnosticism, where Arianism first rose its head and was combated by Bible-believing Christians in Alexandria? Is that the only place where you're finding this textual tradition? Is that the major place where you find these fragments? It wouldn't be too much of a shock to see that none of them are Byzantine. Of course, it's also how much we really classify them. Because we don't want to classify something, because there have been fragments found. If I remember correctly from what Ruckman has had, there have been fragments found that will contain like parts of 2 sentences. You can tell what part of the Bible it came from, but you can't even read a complete sentence on this fragment. It contains a Byzantine reading as opposed to an Alexandrian reading. It is the only, and I really need to track this down. I got to listen to all of Ruckman's tapes all over again and take detailed notes. It's the controversial passage on this papyrus. It is a Byzantine reading, yet the fragment is still classified as being Alexandrian. Isn't that strange? Man of God, you are blessed. May God continue to be blessing you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's see, what are the most significant? Okay. Not one is Byzantine. Oh yes, we are always confirmed in things that we determine what they are. But if the Byzantine text was the original, why did it not show up in either patristic evidence or manuscript evidence until much later? In fact, for Paul's letters, the earliest Byzantine manuscript belonging to the 9th century, in fact, for Paul's letters, the earliest Byzantine manuscript manuscripts, because when you have MSS, that is plural manuscripts. Byzantine manuscripts belong to the 9th century. That would be the 800s. Alexandrian witnesses, 2nd century, which would be the 100s. So they are dated to that point in time for 2 reasons. First, because of the material they were written on. Second, because of the handwriting style. Third is mostly where it was found, the pottery it was found with, things like this. What's interesting to me is how we have completely ruled out of hand, the idea of a conspiracy. Because conspiracy or evidence, here we have the evidence, which you must now consider over your foolish conspiracy theory. I am telling you that these manuscripts dated to the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. They are amazing. They are powerful. They show the greatest witness to the original form of the New Testament. But wait a second. What about the conspiracy end of things? Have we chemically tested the parchment? Well, that would be interesting, but you can always pick up an old piece of parchment or whatever, write on it, hide it in the sand for a few hundred years, and dig it up and be like, hey, look at this ancient document that we just made. The Catholic Church has never done that in history, correct? Yeah, we'll have to talk about that at some point. The donation of Constantine and other such nonsense which has happened, which just can be completely forgotten about because there's no evidence for it whatsoever. Cool, but you know what the problem is that a lot of the time there is evidence. We just don't want to accept the evidence. It's really, really sad. If you guys are getting value out of this video, please like the video, hit that little thumbs up, hit that notification bell, get more notices about when we come out with content and things, and stay tuned for more. Leave a comment if you have a question or just something to add. I'd appreciate it very much. What is most significant about this, them, is that not one is Byzantine, but the Byzantine text was if the Byzantine text was original, why did it not show up in the earlier patristic evidence or manuscript evidence until much later? Well, tell me about these 1st and 2nd century Alexandrian documents that you have. I would be much more interested in dating a manuscript by the ink that is used. If that ink, if it can be proven chemically that it contains a compound like, what is it? Persian blue or something that was invented more modernly, if it's contained in like an illustration on the page or what have you, then guess what? Especially if the text of your New Testament runs over top of that illustration, then that means that text ain't too old, man. Ain't too old at all. So you might want to pay really close attention to that ink. That parchment could be from any time in history. Test the parchment all day. You're not going to learn the age. You need a chain of custody. Where has this manuscript been in history? And we need to be sure. But then there's all sorts of other things to get into. And chemical testing happens before you go looking at writing style to date something. So let's check that ink that was wet when the text was written. Let's check what that is made out of. When I see titanium white or something in there, I'm going to be like, yeah, that ain't no ancient document. Sorry, I was born in the morning, but it wasn't this morning, you know, this kind of stuff. Ever since Westcott's text, oh, and by the way, for textual critics, when I mentioned the Persian blue thing and the text being over top of illustrations on the page, I think you know what manuscript I'm talking about. It's a pretty famous embarrassment for you, isn't it? David Daniels talks about it in his book. That's how I learned out about it. I'm not super educated. I just read some books once in a while, pick up what I can, put it on YouTube, and invite criticism, invite input from anyone. That's what this is about. Okay, let's see. Ever since Westcott and Hort's text of the RV was published, a vitriolic counterattack has come from the KJV circles. So there were KJV circles in Westcott and Hort's day. In other words, all of Christendom, English-speaking Christendom, was KJV, which is interesting how he puts it that way. We are not interested in the debate about the English translation per se. Our concern is over the textual basis, the manuscripts behind the translation. The attack has taken several forms, including denial of Westcott and Hort's major points. How could they deny their major points? They shifted the opinion of experts. Experts, I tell you. The problem is that experts, and we have learned this in recent years, have we not? The opinions of experts really needs help. The opinions of experts is very broken. How dare you question? That's a thing of the past, guys. We are not hearing. Okay, let's see. Vilification of these early manuscripts, or vilification of the scholars who embraced them. Yes. D.A. Waite did a lot of that. Gail Riplinger did a lot of that. Peter Ruckman did a lot of that. A lot of vilification. But how warranted is the vilification? Who embraced them? Our concern in this essay is only with the later 2 points. You may wish to consult my article on the majority text for a discussion of the first point. As for the vilification of the early manuscripts, John W. Bergen, the then dean of Chichester or Chichester, Southern England, argued that the early scribes conspired against the faith. How so? And early scribes conspired against the faith. What scribes? I think you would want to consult his books on the traditional New Testament text for that. If they did so, they were singularly incompetent in their task, for they left too many things unchanged. This is a good point. But we got to be careful about it, too. F.H.A. Scrivener, considered by many KJV fans to be the greatest textual critic for the 19th century, partially because he was sympathetic to much of what Bergen was saying, argued against this conspiracy theory as F.H. Scrivener argued against Dean Bergen's conspiracy theory about ancient scribes conspiring against the text. The thing with these guys that do a lot of study, usually they have a reason for what they said. And it's usually not because they have some tradition that they're trying to uphold. There's a lot to be said in the early New Testament manuscripts, even if we just accept all of them as being ancient. You may have the deity of Christ in all of the verses, all of them, in your manuscripts, and have one in the right place. Say the Gospel of Mark, which is supposed to have been the first gospel, which is supposed to have been the first book of the New Testament. Say you leave the deity of Christ out in Mark, in one spot in the original text. What that implies is that later on, the deity of Christ was possibly added to the rest of the text, like Bart Ehrman would probably say, or it at least shows that primal Christianity may have not accepted the deity of Christ because the first documents would have left it out. One well-placed change in a sea of orthodoxy can be heresy. Real serious stuff. If you guys want to see more about that deity of Christ thing with the ancient church and what they had to say, I highly recommend checking out, and I'll add this to the description, Ken Johnson's Cults and the Trinity. Check that out. What the disciples of the apostles, the guys that spoke with and were taught by John, thought about cults and the Trinity. Let's see. John W. Bergen's conspiracy theory. In fact, They even changed some texts in a misguiding attempt at making them more orthodox. Actually, all scribes did this. As is well known, the Synoptic Gospels have many parallels between them. Sometimes the wording is exactly the same between two or more. Sometimes there are interesting differences between the Gospels. But all scribes at times change the text from one gospel to conform to another, which is helpful when you get people saying, oh, there's contradictions in the Bible. Well, that shows that the Bible originally was not harmonized to get rid of these contradictions, which are so glaring. Highly recommend, if you can get a hold of the copy of a book called The Errors in the King James Bible. That one's easy to get. That one's by Peter Ruckman. I'll add that. Errors in the KJV. We're trying to make a library for you guys. Hopefully this all helps. By Ruckman. Or, even harder to get, the Book of Bible Problems. Let's see. If the great unseals conspired against the faith, as Bergen supposed, which nobody's saying that the unseals themselves conspired because they're pieces of paper, then why would the scribes of each of these, independently of another, try to harmonize the Gospels? If they were trying to be all, heretic-y, why would they want the Gospels to conform together? Well, there's some interesting ideas about that. Especially when you bring in somebody like Marcion, who would have been more familiar with the Gospel of Luke. Perhaps he would try to harmonize all these Gospels together to conform with Luke, because he's like, oh, well, this doesn't make sense here, this doesn't make sense here. But this same guy would deny that Christ was God, would deny that the God of the New Testament is the same as the God of the Old Testament. You have a lot of problems. Church history is a network of questions, problems, issues, names, faces that are all connected somehow. And everybody trades hats all the time. Take John 4:17 as an example. In this passage, Jesus is speaking to the woman at the well. At one point, he says to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." To this she responds, "I don't have a husband." Jesus responds, "Correctly, you have said, I have a husband I don't have." Wow, that's pretty stilted. In virtually all Greek manuscripts, Jesus changed the word order of the woman's statement, putting husband first, which word order in Greek doesn't really matter as much as it does in English. Putting husband first in the sentence, making it emphatic. Yeah, probably. This was intentional. It is as if he were saying, "Lady, you've got somebody at home, he's not your husband." But significantly, two early manuscripts changed the wording. The scribes were apparently troubled with the fact that Jesus, though purportedly quoting the woman, did not quote her exactly. It seemed to be an affront to their view of either the Lord's character or the accuracy of the Bible. One of them changed Jesus' words to an indirect quote. "Correctly, you have said that a husband you do not have." Another changed the woman's words to conform to the word order of Jesus' words. Apparently, he couldn't imagine the Lord quoting her other than exactly. Hence, the Lord quoted her okay, but she said wrong in the first place. So her words were changed. These two manuscripts, Aleph and D, illustrate the piety of the scribes. Piety of the scribes. More like, sounds like they're an incompetent person who leaves all caps messages on YouTube videos. So her words were changed. Their corrections were misguided, to be sure, but they could hardly be charged with conspiratorial motives. Especially remembering that Aleph is probably the product of Simonides, which would have been the brainchild of, I believe it was his grandfather, who was a very strongly liberal Alexandrian-minded Eastern Orthodox priest and educator. That is a huge story to unpack at some point. Huge. David Daniels has done an amazing job on it. Oh, he is a conspiracy theorist. People like, what's that one really smart guy on YouTube? Very intelligent. Very interesting to listen to on language and such. Etymology. He wrote Authorized. I forget his name. Anyways. Why can't I remember his name? It'll come to me. Guys like that. James White, people like this. Oh, David Daniels. He's a conspiracy theorist. Well, why don't you tell us all about how his book is a conspiracy theory? Because in this case, it's you saying conspiracy theory versus evidence, which he supplies in his books and in his videos. Because, see, we can't just be in this pretend world, guys, that all of the evidence is on our side and the other side has no evidence of what they think. That is an environment that is not focused on growth. It is not focused on learning. And this is not just at the textual critical people. This is also at us. Mark Ward. Thank you, Chase. Correct, Mark. This is not just directed at us, at them, guys. It's also directed at us. We cannot pretend that all of the evidence is on our side, because we do that, and our children are exposed to evidence to the contrary, and they're going to be like, oh, wow, that actually makes sense. Mom and Dad, why didn't you tell me about this? There needs to be as much from both sides. There needs to be a well-rounded education. There needs to be teaching. Okay, so here's how this breaks down. Here's how this is false. You know, basically have a college class with your kids every afternoon about everything. Bergen's view that the early manuscripts were up to no good is seen to be a prejudicial pronouncement. Oh. I can't believe someone could be prejudiced and make pronouncements. But he's on a soapbox. He gets to say what he likes. And one that virtually no New Testament scholar has since followed, even those who advocate the majority text theory. But what about the other conspiracy theory? Ooh, here we go. Here we go. You guys can, I will provide, I think I might have already, I'll provide a link in the description to this. It is at bible.org/articles/conspiracy-behind-new-bible-translations. New Age conspiracy? Question mark. More recently, KJV-only advocates have argued that the scholars who produced the Westcott Hort text and those who embrace it belong to a global conspiracy. It's not quite that way. Okay, so at 2 hours and 12 minutes, guys, we need to start wrapping up. Unless I will keep going until I collapse from exhaustion. If one person is like, go to the end of the article. If not, we'll try to cut this as short as we can. Just kind of skim down through. I will keep going if you guys want me to. Like I've said before, this channel, I list a lot of books in the description. I'll have a lot of books on the website that we make. We're still working on that. My computer hates me to try to do that, so I'll probably end up using a different computer that I have access to offsite to complete everything. So there's a lot of books that I recommend a lot of the time. This channel is not to sell books. This channel is to put work and effort into you guys who are making this possible by showing up, wanting to listen, and making it possible by giving us some monetary pressure when it comes to this. Being like, Joseph, we're providing you with some asset to be able to further your channel. What are you doing with your channel? That's my constant thought in my head. There are people that expect something from me because they're giving something to me for what I'm doing. That puts pressure on me to create. Right now, if you guys want me to continue, let me know in the chat. And if you don't want me to cut it short, please let me know in the chat. Let's see. Embrace a global conspiracy. They belong to a global conspiracy. So I would say that they are involved indirectly. Mark Ward was very offended to think that the erudite scholars could possibly be hoodwinked by some sort of conspiracy. But it's like, dude, if you think that the only thing going on are a bunch of businessmen who are like, hey, let's make these Protestants not think as highly of their Bible by giving them 3 billion modern versions. If that's the level that you can think of this stuff on, you've got a lot of finding out to happen. There is a lot going on, and time would fail. I would fail. My voice would fail. My concentration would fail to describe just what's going through my head right now. Suffice it to say that, like Fritz Springmeier has said, and like the Aquarian conspiracy asserted way back when with, I can't even remember her name who wrote that. Christianity has been infiltrated by what has been is identifiable from the Bible as legitimate wolves in sheep's clothing. At every level. Every level. The safest place that you can be in that doesn't have somebody at your church service who is supposed to be there for a bad reason is in a very small church that Satan's not really concerned about. And a lot of the time, if Satan's not concerned about your church, it's because of the effective job execution of your mole. I'm not sure if the on-screen is helping you guys as you're watching. If not, I will take it off just so that the face part of it is bigger. If it'll let me. It's not going to let me, I don't think. Oh, well, actually, that's not too bad. But you guys probably can't even read that anymore. I don't know. And I am also not being encouraged by any of the viewership right now to continue on a thorough reading of this article. which isn't horrible because I'm, adding a lot. But this is what I really wanted to get into. Let's see. More recently, KJV only advocates, which, where did they come from? They only have a 400-year history. Have argued that the scholars who produce the Westcott and Hort text and those who embrace it belong to a global conspiracy. They often charge that the deity of Christ, the virgin birth, salvation by grace, etc., is destroyed by these scholars. Some say that a New Age conspiracy is behind the modern translations. That's this guy right here. I would subscribe to that. But then I would supply evidence for it. I wouldn't just be like, oh, well, I think that if you take out the deity of Christ in one passage, then you've corrupted the Bible, and that makes you a New Age occultist or something. In fact, I would also say that King James Bible-believing churches are infiltrated the same way as any other church. And a lot of the time, it can be the King James-only churches that are actually being hurt more by the activity that they execute. It's really sad to see that we just automatically accept somebody. Oh, you're King James? Okay, you're accepted. I love you, brother. We got to be more careful than that, guys. Just because somebody's convinced of a text type or claims they are, doesn't mean that everything is copacetic. In response, just a few points should be made. First, conspiracy theories are increasing among evangelicals nowadays. And why? Mostly because of the internet, YouTube. And this is a troubling sign. While conspiracy theories are not always a troubling sign. Not always. A lot of them are red herrings. A lot of them are, different things that are just made to distract us, psyops. I would say that based on what I have read. I will read the article, already have it on my reading list. Have a wonderful night. Jesus be with you. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you showing up. It was good having you here tonight. Let's see. That broke my concentration. Let's see now. Conspiracy theories are usually based on evidence. I hate it when there's a psyop, like I believe the flat Earth is at this point. I guess say O instead, maybe that'd be more professional. The Mandela effect, things like this are psychological operations which have many different motivations, many different jobs that they perform. By nature, conspiracy theories ask the reader to be completely skeptical toward one view while adopting the other without an examination of the evidence. What? Is it that's okay. By nature, conspiracy theories. Excuse me, Mr. Wallace, let's be clear. Have you ever been called a conspiracy theorist, like ever, like maybe a couple of years ago, possibly? I'm not sure how you feel about what happened a few years ago, but are you gonna sit there with a straight face and tell me that nobody's ever called you a conspiracy theorist, or anybody that you love or know or respect, or somebody that you would say is intelligent enough to not just fall for something with no evidence? Things are conspiracy theories in my mind until they are proven and come out without a shadow of a doubt and cease to be a theory and become a proven fact. The thing is about that is that before it becomes a proven fact, there is evidence that actually supports it, if it is something that actually happened or something that is actually the case. For instance, Project Paperclip. That could be called a conspiracy theory all day long by all the people who want to talk about it, but the thing is it actually existed and it actually did the things that it is said that it did. So there's a bunch of people calling things conspiracy theories because they refuse to see evidence. A lot of other different conspiracy theories like that. Just rejected out of hand, called a conspiracy theory, write it off, forget about it. Forget about it! By their nature, conspiracy theories ask the reader to be completely skeptical toward one view while adopting the other without an examination of the evidence. One recent book that pushes a conspiracy theory actually has thousands of factual errors and misrepresentations in it, all of which go unchallenged by those sucked in by its aura. He's talking about New Age Bible versions just because he doesn't want to mention it, at least at this point of the article. I think it might not be. I am reminded of the many popular books I have seen sold in Christian bookstores that have the jacket blurb on the back cover, "The devil doesn't want you to read this." More often than not, this line is used by an author who has nothing of substance to say and simply wants to get a book, his book sold. Further, it is a haughty claim. The devil doesn't want us to read the Bible, but to elevate a merely human production to Satan's hit list of forbidden books is both disingenuous and pompous. Yeah, I could see that. There's a lot of books, though, that I'm pretty sure Satan wouldn't want you to read. Even the Missing 411 series by Dave Paulides. That'd be a good one that Satan wouldn't want you to read. Oh. Satan's Underground. Another one. Fritz Springmeier's books on bloodlines. Probably another one. Oh, let's think of another one. I'm not sure if that lady actually wrote any. I'm not sure. Oh, I don't want to throw out too many names right now. I don't know if I want to hold on to them or not. Sparky. Has anybody ever had contact with that book? Talk about quite a thing. And that would make a conspiracy theorist out of anybody, just that book alone. First conspiracy, okay. But yeah, just trying to sell a book. A book on prayer, like Powerful Prayers from the Courts of Heaven or something like this. I could see where Satan wouldn't want you to read a book on powerful prayer. Or Bride Ministries. Satan would not want you to support Bride Ministries. I don't think. They seem pretty legit as far as deliverance goes, or deliverance solutions. They all seem pretty legit and are doing some pretty crazy things. But this is a conspiracy channel. I have not delved into those a lot, but I do need to bring them up because there's some crazy stuff happening, guys. Crazy stuff. Mark Knoll has recently written a masterful book entitled The Scandal of the Evangelical Mind. In it, he speaks about how American evangelicals have decided to chuck their brains for the sake of the party line, or for experience, or for emotionalism, etc. But the history of Christianity up through hang on. I'm too distracted right now. Nature is screaming my name. 6 people right now. I will appreciate it if you guys hold on for 2 minutes while I visit Antarctica really quick, and I will be right back. I appreciate you holding on. Let's see who the people who really don't have to get up in the morning truly are. And I have to get up in the morning, and I've been going for 2.5 hours. It is 12:35. Yeah, I'll be right back. All right, I am back as promised. Wow, we actually have 2 extra viewers. Not too shabby. I guess I could say that I had a trip to Antarctica because where I just went, everything is white and cold to the touch. If you get my drift. Okay. And we're at 21% actually. We are charging on top of streaming. Not bad, not bad. All right. Once the cry of conspiracy is raised, I almost skipped that line, that paragraph. Once the cry of conspiracy is raised, a cloud of suspicion is cast over one side of the issue. Yes, that's something that shouldn't happen, guys. That's why it's called the Bible version conspiracy. There's a lot of conspiracy floating around. There's a lot of stuff going on. It never examines the flimsy basis of its own position, but throws acidic one-liners and ad hominem arguments at the opposition. That is not a responsible conspiracy theory, then. This is what I have seen from many people that advocate flat Earth. It is something that I have seen many people who advocate the see how I shut down that the Mandela effect. A lot of King James Bible believers I have also seen behave this way. He is not saying this for no reason, but I want to take that element out. We don't need to rely on acidic one-liners. We don't need to rely on thought-stopping statements. We don't need to rely on attack the messenger, attack the person arguments. We don't have to do any of that. If there is a conspiracy, one of the main reasons why I started this channel was to find out if there is evidence of a conspiracy behind the modern Bible translations. I wanted to know about it. I don't want to have a life where, you know, you cling to one translation, say it's the Word of God over and over and over again, and then something happens and you're just like, wow, how could I have been so blind? I was played. Something like this. To where it's not the Word of God, where the King James Bible is not God's Word, and where there is no conspiracy behind modern translations. I don't want to say, oh, New Age Bible Versions is a really good book, if there is no conspiracy whatsoever. And she has a lot of really good evidence actually lined up in her book for a lot of different things that she says. There's many places in there that nobody wants to touch. So long as I can keep my head above the water, there is a lot that needs to be covered, a lot that needs to be talked about, and I invite, please, those of you that watch this that don't agree with what I'm saying, bring your evidence to the table, bring all of the stuff that you know about this stuff, not just, that's a conspiracy theory, this person's a wild-eyed conspiracy theorist, write them off. They have a lot of errors in their book. This, I think, is an error. Have you ever talked to that person, asked them, well, isn't this an error in your book? Could you, I really want to know, why is this in there? Why has it survived every edition of your book? Isn't this more blatant? And I would disagree with Gail on minutia as well, on many different details sometimes, but the basic premise of her book seems to be the case. So, often in this particular issue, those who hold the opposing viewpoint are simply labeled as servants of Satan, and their translations are called bastard Bibles. I've heard that before. I've heard both of those before. So guys, before we do too much and we're like, oh, Mark Ward is bought and paid for, rah, 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 he's, a servant of Satan, get him, stuff like this. It's like, cool it for a second. What's the evidence? Just that he doesn't agree with you? The fact that he is criticizing King James onlyism? The fact that he is criticizing the King James Bible? Stop and think. And be careful. Hi, Barbara. That's actually my my sister out in Rochester. So, yeah, that's actually weird. This is the first time that a family member has actually left anything on one of these. But yeah, she left that, and that's really sweet. Thank you, Barbara. All right, so let's see. I would recommend picking up a copy of something called The Crowd by Gustav Le Bon, I believe his name was. He describes the crowd mindset, the crowd mentality, their reaction to slogans, and describes how a crowd reacts to evidence, to slogans, to imagery. And the basic way that they do it, he described, if I remember correctly, as a animal. And we know that females are tend to be more emotionally driven than men. And he said that the crowd is like a female animal. It reacts to, sensory stimuli or stimuluses, or I guess stimuli would be a good word, and its own benefits, and very shallow emotional statements. Guys, I know that we all love to say that so-and-so is a servant of Satan and stuff like this. It's got all these S's in it. So-and-so is a servant of Satan. And it's so fun to say. The The problem is let's be careful of how we do that, because remember what they said in Jacopo Leone's, or no, Jacopo Leone, Gustav Le Bon, yep, two different guys. Jacopo Leone and the Jesuit conspiracy, remember that? Their thing is that their conspiracy outlined in that book, an explosive book. If you don't think there's any conspiracy anywheres, read that book. The Jesuit Conspiracy by Jacopo Leone. Their scheme benefits from our civil wars, our fighting within ourselves. It makes strides against Christianity when Christianity is divided. I'm not saying that you need to go to a church that uses a translation that goes against your convictions. I'm not saying that I'm going to attend a church that, has no time for the King James Bible, has basically the mindset of Dan Wallace here. Not saying any of that. What I am saying is that we need to work on how we talk to our fellow creatures. We need to work on understanding other people's viewpoint. We need to work on our presentation. There's a lot to be worked on. It's not just this doofus sitting in his office at 1:47 in the morning that has to work on his delivery. We all have a lot to work on. Okay, let's keep going. Mark Knoll has recently written a masterful book called The Scandal of the Evangelical Mind. In it, he speaks about how American evangelicals have decided to chuck their brains for safety, for the sake of the party line, or for experience, or for emotionalism, etc. But the history of Christianity up through last century was of a different ink. The church felt that at least some of its number should be scholars, men and women who dedicated their minds to God, who cultivated the life of the mind. The fact that conspiracy theories about Bible translations are getting regularly accepted in several circles indicts evangelicalism. Okay. I'm either misreading this word or I'm unfamiliar with it. INDICTS, right there. Indicts evangelicalism, I think. To be blunt, this trend is symptomatic of a dumbing down of Christians in this country. That is true. That is a huge problem down south, where the Illuminati is rampant. The Bible Belt. And if there's any geographical location in America that Christians tend to be very anti-learning, yes, indicts. Thank you, Charles. You're the best assistant. If there's any more against education, it's down there. Not saying that they're all stupid. Not saying that they're all hillbilly hicks and they need to grow up and read a book or something like this. Not trying to say that at all. What I'm trying to say is that when it's you versus everyone else, usually that indicates that somebody is trying to control you by giving you a us versus them mentality. What is that? It's along the lines of what people would call a, what is it? Mass formation psychosis, where you don't know what to believe, so you just follow your leaders. The guy that gets up front every Sunday and screams his head off about stuff. Let's follow him. Not saying he's a bad person, but could be. Like I said, trust no one except Batman. Let us see. Evangelicals are increasingly holding down the anti-intellectual fort without engaging in serious debate with others. True, because we're unequipped, we're ill-prepared. Like me. I'm ill-prepared. It's like my brand. Second, if there really is such a conspiracy, then why do the majority of evangelical Bible-believing seminaries and Bible colleges use modern translations and the Greek New Testament behind them? Oh, I can't believe this. If you think that there is a conspiracy against Christianity, then well, just answer this for me then. How come Christians are always using it? Well, let me tell you something. An effective conspiracy is not detectable. And an effective conspiracy is usually carried out using an insider. Just saying. Like the guy, I forget who it was. Bill Schneblin related the account. Who was it? A great general over, I think, in Arabia or something. And the guy has this guy that started like the hashish cult surrounded. I think it was him. And the guy who's surrounded threatens the guy who's surrounding him. And he's like, you'll be dead by morning if you don't leave. And he's like, you've got to be kidding me. I am surrounded by guards constantly. Some of them I have known for 20 years. They are all my most dedicated soldiers. I am untouchable. The next morning he wakes up. And I'm not sure that it represents how many people there were. But when he woke up in the morning, laying on the ground, in his sleeping bag or whatever, there were, I believe, 10 assassin's daggers buried in the ground around his head. And he backed down and he left. The idea of the mole is not an outdated concept, Daniel. Okay. Second, if there really is such a conspiracy, then why do the majority of evangelical Bible-believing seminaries and Bible colleges use modern translations of the Greek modern translations and the Greek manuscripts behind them? If the faithful wish to find fault with the beliefs of these schools, hang on. If the faithful wish to find fault with the beliefs of these schools, then they should attack head-on their beliefs rather than that they use the wrong Bible. So in other words, if you're so disillusioned with Christian education, then why don't you attack them for something besides using an RSV or an NIV? Well, usually NIV, RSV, ESV, NKJV is usually a barometer of your conservatism, usually. It kind of grades from King James to New King James to, in my mind, ESV maybe New American Standard would be next. NIV, RSV is way out there. New RSV, all those. So it's kind of a barometer that way. The faithful. Okay. And also, there's a hook in there. Like, remember that one guy? He's still on YouTube, I'm sure. Older guy, looked kind of like Santa Claus. He was on something called The Dean Show. Went to Liberty University. Started studying the ancient manuscript Sinaiticus. Found out, wow, the Bible really has an interesting tradition. Wow, it really must not actually be God's word because there's just too much going on. So, left and became a Muslim based on that. It happens a lot more than we would probably want to think because, you know, all of these people are not exactly becoming New Testament textual scholars. They're leaving and doing something else with their lives. Anyways, I'm getting tired. Okay. But the issue is always the same. Wrong Bible must mean, by implication, wrong beliefs. But the beliefs are not examined. Mark Driscoll. I don't know a lot about what he believes. He's got a lot of really powerful sermons. Those ones in the Jezebel spirit were just like, oh, how have I never heard of these sermons in my life? Fantastic. Fantastic. Doesn't use the King James Bible. Am I going to sit here and say, wow, I'll never listen to Mark Driscoll's heretical teachings because he's using Satan's Bible? He may be using a Bible that is being manipulated to bring in the New World Order, yes. But is God capable of using that to produce a very powerful sermon that could help me instead of isolating me from things like that are just like, wow, his stuff has really helped a lot with a lot of different things that I've listened to of his. And he doesn't use the King James Bible. It's amazing how that can work sometimes. Especially, and also another thing to think about, if you're Satan and you really want people to cut themselves off, the most conservative Christians a lot of the time, some of the best Christians, a lot of the time very good Christians also using modern versions, obviously, being cut off from each other. King James Bible believers cutting themselves off. I'm kind of thinking out loud here. Cutting themselves off from what now constitutes the larger body of Christian biblical sermons, simply because of the translation being used. But we will listen to a sermon by someone who is using the correct Bible. You guys know that Tyler Doka is still King James only and he's claiming to be Jesus Christ? Did you know that? Yeah. Takes the Bible just how it's written. King James only guy. Pretty much. Kind of in a weird way, but yeah, pretty much. Just because you use a certain translation, something that I've said to my wife recently a lot, anybody can be convinced of a text type. You need to look at their spirit. You need to look at what comes out of their heart through their mouth. You need to be careful of that and so many other different things and see if they're living like the King James Bible says. Living like they're King James. There's so many King James Bible believers that are living like they use the NIV, okay? Anyways, I'll probably move on from that. My desk magically transformed into a pulpit there momentarily. It must be the Mandela effect. Third, let me camp on this doctrinal issue a bit. What doctrines are at stake? Is the deity of Christ? Is the deity of Christ? Surely not. Evangelicals embrace the deity of Christ, regardless of which Bible they use. It also doesn't really matter because it's just to make the Bible compatible with world religions is what the changes are supposed to constitute. And they find verses in their translations, or their translation to back it up. Some studies, in fact, show how the deity of Christ is better supported in the NIV and NASB, etc., than in the KJV. I know where you're coming from on that. But let's also, that would be an interesting discussion. I would love to talk more with that about somebody that disagrees with me, or with somebody that disagrees with me. Oh boy. That would be not because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna step all over their head. Nothing like that at all. Whew. So, and I'm starting to get a headache too, even with my orange lenses on. So we've been going for almost 3 hours. So yeah, I'm at the point of exhaustion just about. We're almost done. Let's see if we can get through this as fast as we can, so I can just go to bed. It's 1 o'clock. Ha. Guys, if you guys want to help support, I'm sure that the people that are here right now, are probably mostly supporters, people that are like, possibly my wife is still awake, or maybe she just left the tablet running. Charles Evans, one of our co-conspirators, Chase Dowell, one of our other co-conspirators, probably one other person. We put a lot of work into this, guys. Even though we don't do 2 hours of prep time during the week, we take more than enough prep time, or we take more than enough time actually making these videos. So yeah, please consider becoming a co-conspirator if you are not already. And if you are, thank you. You're the reason we're doing this. You're the reason we're able to do this. Let's see. How about the virgin birth? Again, no. Evangelicals embrace that. Yes, of course they do. Evangelicals. But is it evangelicals that spawn these modern translations? Are they the ones that spawned the text? Are they are there people that who use these translations that are like, well, actually, no, I wouldn't believe in the deity of Christ because just because the translation says it doesn't mean that I do. So many things. This is very, very overly simplified and a very nuanced and polarized discussion. How about the virgin birth? Again, no. Okay. One of the best defenses of the virgin birth was written by founder of the Westminster Seminary, Gresham Machen, a man who did not think that the manuscripts behind the KJV were the best. How about inerrancy of the Bible, that is? Inerrancy, the Trinity, salvation by grace, justification by faith, you name it. Whatever the evangelical doctrine, it is not compromised by these new translations or the manuscripts behind them. Check out New Age Bible versions. She would disagree strongly with you on that one. And even if, like I said before, even if every verse about any of these doctrines is in there verbatim, and one of them's gone, it's just that well-placed one, you gotta really invest time in like, why would this be the one that would be taken out? And I'm also, and just to clarify, I am not saying that every textual variant was put in there by a conspiracy. I'm not saying that at all. And yeah, like Chase Dowell just said, the Net Bible. Dan Wallace, you may be familiar with that. Young woman will conceive. How about the virgin birth? What? And then other translations that have, like, instead of belief, they have the word obey. What happened to grace through faith in that passage? It's in that passage. It's how often, like, even statistically speaking, okay, the Illuminati sits down, okay, statistically speaking, most people preach out of this chapter, so let's make the change in this chapter. Ay, guys, there's so much that we don't consider when we write about conspiracies that we don't believe in anyways, so why would we know anything about them? Justification by faith. You name it, whatever the evangelical doctrine, it is not compromised by these new translations or the manuscripts behind them. This is a real issue. What doctrines are changed if we change our Bibles? Westminster Seminary still follows the Westminster Confession. Trinity Evangelical Divinity School still embraces a strong doctrinal statement. So does Dallas Seminary, its statement. Grace Seminary, Talbot, Western, Denver, Capital, etc. Yet the vast majority of the faculty on these schools use modern translations and the ancient manuscripts that stand behind them. Where is the cause and effect relationship between new translations and heresy? Okay. Let's yeah, we can get into that one too. Like the people that produced it. Did you maybe have a couple of Unitarians on that RV committee? Possibly. That's interesting. And I would also highly recommend The Word God Will Keep It by Joey Faust. If I haven't put that in the description, I really need to. I got so many things I gotta add to the description, so it might take a couple of days to actually get it in there. And remember the one quote from there that the educated are always more liberal than the laity, and the liberalism of today will be the conservatism of tomorrow. Remember that? We're not talking about fundamentals of the faith being completely compromised. Not talking about that. I get that. Even if some cult removed every blatant support for the virgin birth, say, there would still be ones that they missed. I get that. There's no way to actually, well, there actually is, to destroy a fundamental from the Bible completely. That's just not the point. Christianity's not supposed to go anywhere. It's supposed to be compatible. It's just supposed to lock together with it's just supposed to lock together with what's going to happen. What is happening in front of our eyes? How many evangelicals, how many leaders of Baptist conventions and stuff like this will waltz right up to the Pope, kiss his toe? Boy, we have fallen far, guys. It's not just the, oh, look at this. We hold to the fundamentals of the faith. We aren't modernists. What translations are the modernists using again? Do they usually use King James? No. They're usually going to be, RSV, something like that. Now, to be sure, conspiratorialists can find heretics who use the modern translations. Well, actually, there's a lot of them that use the King James too, like the Mormons. That is beside the point, however. Well, yeah, because it doesn't always necessarily correlate. You can have a heretic who uses the King James Bible. I get it, okay? That's not what we're talking about. Why? Because an equal, if not greater, number of heretics can be found who embrace the KJV. Yeah. In the 1880s, in fact, the KJV became the ping pong ball in English debates over the deity of Christ. Yeah. Those who argued for the deity of Christ appealed to the Greek text, since the KJV translators had not accurately translated some of the passages. Ooh, interesting. This is similar or similar to what Peter says in 2 Peter 3:16, some things in Paul's letters are hard to understand, which the ignorant and unstable twist to their own destruction, as they do also the other scriptures. And I would love your guys' input too. Yep. I get a spray arm. I've been going way too long. Crash, crash away. 1 paragraph left, or 2 paragraphs left, and we're done. Finishing this one and the next one, and zip. It's been a long one. It has been a long one. The real issue is, let's see. The real issue is whether thoroughly orthodox folks can be found standing behind these modern translations. Yes, they can, and predominantly so. Which, by the way, King James onlyists usually are in one spectrum, conservative Bible-believing Christians, such as sometimes Presbyterians, most of the time Baptist. So just to say that modern translations are just completely arbitrary across the board, they don't, you can find anybody that use anything. There still is trends, okay? There still is. The real issue is whether thoroughly orthodox folks can be found standing behind the modern translations. Yes, they can, and predominantly so. The faith delivered once for all the saints is not in danger from these new translations. The real danger is in defecting Christians from deflecting Christians from our mission in life to share the good news of Jesus Christ with a dying world compassionately and clearly. That is one thing that I'm just like, yeah. First of all, this lost and dying world was predicted by the people that saw the RV coming in. They're like, okay, guys, the worst period of infidelity and free thought, as they called it back then, is coming. And this translation, the Revised Version, is going to initiate it. And ever since then, in the occult revival, it has been a downhill slope for Christianity. Yeah. And yes, I will agree. This issue can be distracting. That's why we have a second ministry. Besides the Bible version conspiracy, we also have card-carrying Christians to take care of that end of things. Breaking down the walls that are keeping people from the Bible and helping them learn it in an unintimidating format. A business card. Hang on. Here. For sake of time, a business card. On all sorts of different interesting subjects. Check it out, cardcarryingchristians.com. Links in the description. And we have a lot of work to do on that too. I'm telling you guys, 20 corners on this tent, and we're trying to nail them all down in a storm. They benefit from our division. Why do you think they came out with a new translation to begin with? If they would have left the old translation alone, there wouldn't be a lot of division on this, would there? There wouldn't be a lot of fighting. There wouldn't be a lot of all of this stuff. The darkness benefits when the light fights itself. So is there a conspiracy today? My answer may surprise the reader. Yes, I believe there is. But the conspiracy has not produced these modern translations. Rather, I believe that there is a conspiracy to cause division among believers, to deflect our focus from the gospel to petty issues, to elevate an anti-intellectual spirit that does not honor the mind which God created, and to uphold as the only Holy Bible a translation that, as lucid as it was in its day, 400 years later, makes the gospel seem antiquated and difficult to understand. So in other words, we should be focused on the gospel instead of wearing the I'm not educated badge like so many fundamental preachers do. The elevating one translation that can make the gospel sound stupid and old. Really? Very interesting. How he thinks that it sounds stupid and old because it's in an old translation. Maybe it gives it more of a, like, you read the newspaper, you read that language, and you're just like, okay, yeah, okay, I'll think about it or something. You read King James, something written 400 years ago, and you're just like, gives you a lump in your throat. There's a lot to be considered other than, oh, it's old, it sounds stupid. There's an authority, there's a reverence, there's a grandeur, there's a majesty connected with how things are worded 400 years ago. Something that makes you have to think about what you're reading as well. Very interesting how that works. But yes, I agree. So much that Christians could be doing. Where did the division come from? Well, I personally think that it came from where the controversy started. And that is with the introduction of something besides the Bible that was supposed to apparently be the Bible. So this conspiracy is to divide Christians, yes. And how is that controversy, that division, sustained? First, it is created by making a antithesis and a thesis and an antithesis. That's how you get a controversy, and then the resolution of it is the thesis, right? Or the thesis, antithesis, synthesis, where you put them both together. Illuminati principle. Used other ways and used practically in other ways, but yeah, they go by that a lot. So, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time keeping track. Guys, it's 1:18 in the morning. We've been going for 3 hours and 10 minutes. 6 people still watching. Kudos to you guys. And there's 2 notes that he has below this, which we'll probably not address tonight. If you guys want to see us address it at some point, let me know. It takes little thought to see who is behind such a conspiracy. Yes, it does. Very little thought. The enemy of the gospel. The enemy of light. The enemy of the Bible. We wouldn't have the controversy if it wasn't for the wonderful textual theories. Isn't that interesting? And this fight keeps going. It keeps going. It takes 2 to tango. King James onlyism. So hyped, So full of emotion, it has been filled with a lot of information that is contrary to the information on the other side, or the opinions at least, or what have you. And then you have the modern textual side and other such nuances between them, different grades. And the darkness is benefiting from our civil war. What is it? What is that analogy about the ants again? You have a jar of ants, you have black ants and red ants in the jar. Put them both in there. They're not going to care about each other. They're just going to, oh, hey, red. I'm not gonna say it YouTube, hey N, and just be like, he's a cool dude. Yeah, he's a cool dude. Yeah, okay. Let's go find some food. Somebody comes along outside of their little sphere and shakes the jar, sets it back down. The black ants and the red ants are going to look at each other and be like, what'd you do that for? You're the enemy. And they're going to start killing each other. Who's the enemy in that case? Is it the red ants? Is it the black ants? No, it's somebody outside of the spectrum, somebody outside of the sphere that comes in, introduces the fight, and doesn't have to do a thing afterwards. Guys, I personally think that most sides are being played like a marionette. And like I said before, it's those strings that I'm looking forward to finding, exposing, and snipping. My name is Joseph Armstrong, and welcome to the Bible Version Conspiracy. And by the way, you get a gold medal if you have watched this entire live stream, 3 hours and 15 minutes. Kudos to you. I respect that, and I appreciate your listening ear. So much to unpack, guys. Stay tuned. Stay focused. And read your King James Bible. Read your Bible like the devil's after it. Because he is. And it truly is a Bible version conspiracy. Have a great evening. And we'll see you next week for Gail Riplinger's Occult Connections. All right. We'll see you around. Have a good one. I don't know if I can synchronize this. Let's try.